And so what I did was to kind of call I refer to it as a come to Jesus meeting, where really we had to sit down and take a look at what this meant. Because the next step, obviously, when you going from warning, was to the potential of losing accreditation. And so we formed teams for each of the standards, got as many people involved as we could. There were a lot of people that understood, but had just not had the leadership and didn't know how to move forward. They hadn't had the experience before. And so we were able to pull together a self-study, and the accreditation visit happened actually it was like 3 weeks before I left. And I wasn't there when they got the report back, but they were taken off warning. And they felt really good. And I think the thing that I saw was the ownership that people started to take. And one of the things we talked about was how you can't do accreditation every 6 years, or if you're on warning or whatever, every 2 years. It has to be something that's ongoing. And if you look at the standards, they really fit within what we're doing. I mean, there's standards for you as trustees. There's standards for the district office. There's standards for, management, what goes on in our classes, how is the budget supporting, what's going on in the campus. I mean, all of that's pretty well laid out. And so I think that if we're doing our job, accreditation is just something that comes. And so I think I was able to bring that awareness to that campus. I think that what I brought to that was confidence in what the process was and that they could do it, because I'd done it on many different campuses, and how important it was. I think that's, if you can really help people see the value of what you're doing and how it's going to benefit them. And then we provided a lot of food. I think that sometimes is really important too. I can see you understand that too. So I think in California, actually, the last 10 years, there's been a lot of accreditation issues. I'll give you one more example. Do I have time? What's my, okay. Compton. I have to tell you, one of my favorite jobs that I've had, just because they had been so beaten down, but they just maintained their integrity. The faculty had tried to go to the state and tell them what was going on, and they were ignored. And so it was really a time, I got there after triage. I mean, this is a college that had to go within 6 weeks from one curriculum to another curriculum when they went under El Camino. You can imagine what that, just everything that's involved with that. And so they had to do that. When I got there, they were setting up systems. But in addition to setting up all their committees and getting back into doing curriculum and everything, they were also dealing with something called FCMAT, which I can't even remember what the acronym stands for, but when you lose your accreditation, or there's a real financial problem, they bring in a state agency that then will oversee you. And they come and visit, and then they give you these scores and all of these different categories. Well, I took a look I was over Instruction and Student Services, and I took a look at the FCMAT categories, and I thought, this is ridiculous. They wanted to know who was our curriculum specialist. It was all K-12 requirements that were trying to be forced on a higher ed institution. And so, I went to the provost, the CEO, and I said, this is ridiculous. And it turned out that the people who were coming and visiting were all from K-12 too. And so they had no understanding. So in student services and instruction, their scores were not getting over 2, and they had to get up to a 7 before they could get out from underneath all of this work that they were being forced to do. And so I convinced the CEO that we had to talk with the person who was in charge of FCMAT. And we talked to him and explained the situation, and while he just thought, this was not really a problem. Well, then the request for all of the materials for the next visit came, and we put together, I can't remember how many pounds, and one of the people who was coming to visit was living overseas. and required us to send everything overseas. And so we sent the bill to the head of FICMAT and said, this is what's happening with these. And then he realized that something was really wrong. And so we were able to get some retired, a CEO and a chief instructional officer from community colleges coming in to take a look at what was going on. And we went from 2s to 7s and 8s in every one of the categories in instruction and student services. So again, you know, and I wasn't the first person looking at this, but I think because I've had such a breadth of experience, and I'm not afraid to ask questions, that I was really able to help that institution and get, you know, that they still had a lot of work to do, but at least they didn't have FICMAT, you know, watching every step and requiring these ridiculous things that didn't fit with what they were doing. So I really felt good about that.
When did they get out from under the wings of El Camino?
Oh, they're still there, but they have applied for accreditation, and so the process is probably 2 years now. I would guess that within 2 years. The biggest issue there still, quite frankly, is a board. They have a board that is not, it's a very strange situation. So Compton Community College District exists, and they have a CEO that works with that board. The board does not have the actual power. That's El Camino, and so it's like a board in training. And so it's, you know, they're still working on that. They've got a great CEO from the Compton area. He's amazing. He's only like 36 years old.
But it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. I was president of college in LA when that all happened. And, you know, the president there at the time was a good man, but he didn't have the courage to stand up and, you know, either get somebody else to come in or say to his board, this is wrong, you know, and that's when you run into those kinds of problems. That's why that trust and respect is so important.
You have an impressive resume. Can you tell us something about yourself?
Well, I grew up in a farm in North Dakota. Not in the West. I wish it was, because then we would have some oil money, but in the middle, 5th generation. My grandfather homesteaded there in 1800s. I have a brother who now is farming with his sons, and I'm the oldest of 7 children. And one of the reasons I love community colleges and I love our students is because I have that in my own family. I have a sister who is dyslexic, and if there had been women's athletics, they came her senior year in high school, she would have been a star and it would have been okay. But she really didn't have anything like that, and they didn't really understand how she learned. And so she became a really good heck raiser. I had a brother, and actually 2 brothers. The brother who's farming got his degree at Wahpeton Technical College in ag business. And I have another brother who got a 2-year degree in forestry. I have 2 sisters who are artists in New York City. One of them is an adjunct professor at LaGuardia and then also does her sculpture. And the other one studied in Florence at the Accademia dell'Arte and now is a designer for the Metropolitan Opera. And then I have a brother who is a farmer in South Dakota, organic farmer, so he and my brother in North Dakota have very interesting discussions. And a brother who teaches in Colorado. And I tell you about that because it's really important. It's very important to me. My family's always been very important to me. Right now, I have a living situation where my daughter, who's a professor at USC, and her husband and 2 little boys have the front house, and we have the back house. It's just me now. My husband died in July. But one of the reasons in 2004 that I made the decision to do the interims was so we could travel. And I tell all of you, don't just focus on your work. There's so much more to life. And I'm really ready to get back into work now. It was the one thing that we didn't do together, although he always supported me. So I have a great life. what do I say? I went from a faculty member to a vice president in Minnesota, a huge leap. It was a small college. I had everybody reported directly to me. I was the vice president. And 2 years after I got there, Minnesota merged the technical colleges, the community colleges, and the state universities into one system. You can imagine. And then if you were in a community where there was a community college and a technical college, you had to merge. And we were in a community where the technical college and community college merged. And so we had 2 faculty unions, and I became the vice president over the whole institution. But I'll tell you what, that was a really valuable learning experience because we had to go through accreditation, and it was a way of really bringing everybody together. Because I think people were afraid. They didn't understand the culture of the other institution. But it ended up serving the students in Minnesota so much better because you have that comprehensive community college like we have here. I have a very strong background in CTE because of being in Minnesota. They have very strong programs there. And I think one of the things I'm really excited about is what's happening right now with looking at high schools. You know, in this country, I've done a lot of work abroad. Community colleges are unique to this country, and other places are interested in having an option for people for lifelong learning opportunities. They have folk schools, but not where you can get degrees or change your career, you know, midstream. And so I've been to a number of different countries, and as they are looking at trying to develop a community college system. And at the same time, I looked at what they had. And, you know, in the Scandinavian countries and Germany, students often have to decide by 14, or it's decided for them sometimes, which direction they're going. And that's not always a good thing. But I can tell you, we do not have a place for probably 40% of our students in our high schools because they are hands-on learners. They're bright. I mean, I have 2 siblings, incredibly bright, but they're hands-on learners. They learn differently. And we are not providing the opportunities that they need. And so I believe, you know, colleges need to work really closely with business and industry. And I've done that, you know, wherever I've been, and I would really support that if I was here and bring my expertise to you.
I like what you said about the high school. This was my high school history teacher, and he might have sent me to reform school.
That's why he's so smart. He's my student.
But
That's what my brother teaches is history.
seriously, I agree with him. You're a very good and intriguing candidate. I've got kind of a technical or practical question.
Sure.
Just doing the interims,
Mhm.
2003?
4.
4, okay. Is it like if you do more than 6 months, then you can't do the retirement, or you lose the retirement?
No, I never retired from
Oh,
California.
okay. Okay,
I have from Minnesota.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Yeah?
I have a question, just my own ignorance. When you're talking about accreditation, I'm very familiar with ACCJC, but your papers talk about WASC. Is that WASC?
Oh, that's the Western Association. That's, yeah,
It's-
underneath
it's-
AACJC.
It's underneath.
Yeah,
Okay.
or not AACJC. What is the,
It's above.
Western
So WASC
Association.
is the parent agency.
Is that it?
Western Association
Okay.
of
Yes,
Schools
Association
and
of
Colleges,
Colleges.
and they do the.
Right, North Central, yeah.
universities, And they have general oversight over the ACCJCC.
But community colleges only work with ACC.
ACCJCC, that's our only reporting line is to them.
Okay, thank you.
yeah. When I mentioned North Central, that's the one that's over the Midwestern areas. And WASC, you're right, is the overarching institution, yeah.
Any other questions for our candidate?
Yeah, Dr. Harmon,
Yes.
your experience with the legal issues in terms of whether you've been fortunate and avoided all of those?
No.
Or had to deal with that and managing costs and desired outcomes?
You know, I've been on a college campus where they had a lawyer on the payroll, and I'll tell you, everything becomes a legal issue then. You know, I mean, that was their job. I understand that we have a lawyer who also is the vice chancellor, and that to me makes absolute sense because most legal things have to do with personnel. And, you know, you have to make sure that you're being cautious. but I do not believe in running. I like to try to solve things before they get to that point. I'm a real believer in, in empowering people so that if there are things going on, that they handle them. And if they need help, come for counsel. I've come to colleges where everybody comes to the vice president to get things solved. Well, that's not right. I mean, that's a poorly managed institution, and people have not been empowered to handle things. They've not been trained to handle things. Often when I hear of things happening on campuses, I know you had an incident at Modesto Junior College recently with, I know about it because it became national news. And when I looked into that, it seemed to me that it was a situation where somebody was making a decision that maybe should have gotten somebody else involved right at the point of that decision being made. And so again, I think it's really important that people are engaged and involved in training. I've done a lot of training with classified staff. I think, those people are right at the front line. And again, when that doesn't happen, I've been in situations, one campus, it's just so important that people pay attention to things. I came to a campus where it was really rampant with disrespect for people. And I remember sitting in a board meeting where a board member berated a student in public. It was the kind of situation where you should have taken that student aside and talked to them. But to do it in public like that, and that was throughout the organization, it was really a sad situation, and one that I couldn't tolerate. So I'm a firm believer in professional development, staff development, empowering people. That's how I work.
Any other questions for our candidate? Well, thank you so very much. We got time before the time expired, so you did good.
All right.
And we were pretty thorough.
Okay.
So with that, I want to thank you very much
Thank you.
for interviewing.
Yeah.
And we wish you a lot of luck. And, have a safe trip
Well,
home.
I'm here to serve you if it works out. My life will go on and I'll get another gig, but this one sounds interesting, so thank you.
Thank you.